Hello and welcome to the Curios Cast. This week we will be talking about the Moscow signal and the Havana Syndrome. So I know, so Josh briefly, got Josh on the brain.
Thank you very much.
George briefly mentioned the Havana Syndrome in his Sounds podcast. Would it have been? It might be a colour.
Podcast.
Sounds
That might have been 2 episodes.
Sounds episode. So it must have been a couple of episodes ago now. Yeah.
What's that sound here on Curios Cast FM?
Which was one of Tom's favourites, I think. I
didn't dislike the episode. It's
I can always tell when Tom doesn't enjoy an episode as we're recording it.
No. It's literally at the end. All I said was, out of all the nature documentaries, I like the underwater ones the least. And you guys attacked me as if I just said like fish are all shit. But all I was saying is I'm more attached to the mammals and reptiles on the land rather than amphibians and fish and stuff.
I think you're just scared of it. You're just scared of the ocean.
I like that theory of yours, George. Yeah, the unknown really freaks him.
Did you watch that thing about the eel dying in the...
I'd already seen it. Like when you said, this thing about the sulfur lake, I knew it was sulfur before you even said it.
I don't believe
I've watched them. They're just not the best.
We actually listened to that episode. Like Gina never really listens, but like apart from when we drive somewhere in the van, I'm like, should we put a Curios Cast on? You haven't listened in a while. She's like, all right. So we actually did that one, and what was the one before it?
Fuck knows.
Weird News, wasn't it?
Maybe. Oh yeah, we did it about the Bourbons and that. I was like, you will like this. About Bourbons. But it was enjoyable listening back, George, I must say.
Yeah.
Although I didn't. I'm glad that Tom was listening on the edit to remind me of all the bits that I said. But there was one bit as well where I was like, I'll edit in the sound of the fucking 52 hertz whale or something. No, the sky trumpets. That was it, and I just never did.
Yeah.
I said it like 3 times as well. I was listening to myself like,
that's behind a paywall now. That sound.
Yeah, that's it. It's a secret episode. Anyway, but you briefly allured to the Havana Syndrome. Whereas actually, what I was really sort of working on was talking about the Moscow signal.
Oh, so you stopped me in my tracks for a different thing.
Yeah, but it's not a different. They're one in the same, really. And so, like, I'll talk about the Moscow signal. I keep going to call it the Moscow syndrome, the Moscow signal, and then you can follow up with the Havana Syndrome a bit because they do overlap. But yeah, so I guess you've probably heard of the Moscow signal, George. Or do you not really?
No, I've not actually heard of the Moscow signal.
Oh, okay, interesting.
It's not something that came up when I was looking at the other one. So yeah.
Okay, that's good. What about yourself, Tom?
I haven't heard of any of them. I hadn't heard of Havana Syndrome until George mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, and then when he said it, I started typing in Havana Syndrome to look at the Wikipedia, and then you said that's what my episode's going to be in a couple of weeks. So then I closed the tab and didn't look at anything. And I've never heard of the Moscow signal. Is
it Moscow or Moscow, or like the Americans say Moscow?
I think the Americans that say Moscow. I think it's Moscow.
I thought it was like I think Russians would say Moscow.
Yeah, I was going to say
Moscow.
Yeah, are we saying it wrong?
You're both wrong
because there's that song Moscow. Who sings it?
Probably an American.
I've not heard of it.
No, it's not.
Moscow. They say Moscow. Bled Moscow.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
Genghis Khan. That's it.
What would FPS Russia? How do you say it?
Welcome to Moscow. Today we're going to shoot big guns today. Like that.
Oh, they're German.
Exactly that.
Oh, yeah.
Genghis Khan. So the Germans say Moscow.
I think it's Moscow, not Moscow.
It sounds quite British,
also thought
doesn't
it was Ran and not Ran.
Yeah, I was wrong on that.
Yeah.
I didn't even dispute it afterwards. Yeah.
But whatever it is, right? So
Moscow.
Well,
Google says Moscow when you do British pronunciation, and then when you do American, it says Moscow. But there's not an option for Russian pronunciation.
Russian, they call it Moskva.
Because Western bastards made Google, ruining it. But yeah, anyway.
What, Google or Moscow?
No, ruining pronunciations all over the world. Right, wherever it is. For the purposes of today's episode, we shall be calling it Moscow.
Yes.
Because I am British. Fucking Moscow, innit?
All right.
But so I actually read a what would you call it? Like a scientific published article about this because I
read those all the time about Bigfoot, and you always laugh at me.
Do they actually exist about Bigfoot?
You got to know where to look.
I can call you Josh again. George has got some like resource, like untapped resource of the Bigfoot articles, published journals.
It's like the Vatican archives. You're not allowed in there without a valid reason.
But yeah, this is actually the Moscow Signal. So the name of the paper is The Moscow Signal, Epidemiological Study, 40 years on, by Jose A. Martinez. So big up Jose A. Martinez.
Shout
out, yeah. But he talks all about, so the Moscow Signal is basically... you're laughing at me.
I was laughing at that noise.
All right, what noise?
Was it no noise?
There was a noise. George went like, bleh!
I tried to do a brat, but my tongue got in the way.
It was just a bleh.
It's probably
I can't wait to listen back now to that. Yeah.
It's probably blown out someone's ears on a train somewhere.
I'll just cut that up a few times and have you just every now and then doing it again.
We'll make the outro out of the bleh.
Yeah, I've probably got a face of instant regret as well. So.
Yeah, right.
Carry on.
So the Moscow Signal is like purportedly, is that the word, George? Purportedly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I say words sometimes, and then I listened back the other day, and I was like, that was not the right word.
I like the way you always ask me whether it's right, but then when I do try and correct you with the Oxford-Cambridge Dictionary, you're not having it.
Fuck that shit, no.
The Oxford-Cambridge Dictionary.
The Oxford-Cambridge Dictionary.
Cambridge. What's the dictionary looked at?
Questionable already, isn't it? Sounds like a myth.
Okay, now I'm going to have to look. What was that? 4 episodes ago?
Yeah, that's what you said. I listened to that one. You said that, and I was like,
Oxford Cambridge Dictionary.
That's not a thing. Like, it's one or the other. It's the Oxford Dictionary or the Cambridge Dictionary. They're like competing dictionaries.
No, this was like a super group.
Well, this fucking bollocks. Anyway, so it was purportedly a signal irradiated by the Soviet government from 1953 to 1979, aimed at the US Embassy in Moscow.
Huh.
Right, so it was apparently like microwaves being radiated directly into the US Embassy for reasons unbeknownst, like and there are various theories on it, why they were doing this, whether or not they were doing this, so apparently the government, the US government, were aware of it. They sort of knew it was going on, but they didn't admit that they thought there was anything going on until as late as 1972. It was microwave transmissions, varying between 2.5 and 4 gigahertz. You'll understand what I mean by that. Yeah, exactly. And then this article goes in deep about like, the safety levels of microwaves and, what is deemed safe and what is deemed unsafe. I should have, I meant to do this. I've just realised now that I was going to do it and I forgot. Get up what like a standard microwave, for some comparison. Microwave oven.
Yeah, you can get those
radiation levels.
Charts that have the sort of spectrum, and it shows this is like what a microwave puts out, and a TV and a phone and all.
Yeah.
Like that.
So, that'd be good. If you could find that, I've quickly found microwaves. Limits amount of microwaves can leak from an oven in its lifetime to 5 milliwatts of microwave radiation per square centimetre. I mean, that's not in the same scale, is it? Does gigahertz relate to watts? Am I like being a complete idiot here? Are they two different scales?
Well, watts was electricity, and gigahertz is a frequency, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because hertz just that hertz just means per minute, right? So if something's gigahertz, then that's like 1 gigahertz is 1,000 times a minute, or is it a second? Fuck, we're dumb, aren't we?
But you can also rent cars from
It's a second. It's a second. No, it's a second. I remember reading that in the article. Yeah.
No, were you just testing us, was you?
No. I know it was like, but they talk about it in terms of like per cubic centimetre.
God, look at him with his big iPad, isn't it?
It looks really big on the fucking GoPro angle as well. Look at my like epidemiological study.
No.
It's
really in focus, so I could see it all.
It's slightly more in focus for the recording camera, hopefully. But it's a fucking range of gigahertz that are maybe bad, maybe not.
Sometimes maybe bad, sometimes maybe good.
Well, like, so, according to this chart, what is it? Yeah, this was, there's like a debate onto what is, considered safe at those times, and different countries had different safety standards. So the actual Soviet safety standards were actually higher than America's at the time. So some people say around that as well is like, well, they knew more the damage that they were doing according to their safety standards, so even more reason why it should have been of concern to America, even though, there's lots of quite scientific numbers here that I'll be honest, I can't quite get my head around. Well, here you go. To get an idea of what these power levels would mean in modern terms, here you go. They do sort of put it into modern terms. A 300 MW Wi-Fi route. I don't know what I mean by this. Meters per. What's MW?
Megawatt.
Yeah. Megawatt. Well done.
Megawatt.
A 300 megawatt Wi-Fi router can have an intensity of 30,000,001 megawatt per centimetre squared, a distance of 10. So yeah, exactly. This is why I don't understand
it. I failed GCSE maths.
Yeah, I know, and this is loads of shit. And then, I really
love the level of preparedness that you've got.
I read this. I couldn't fucking fathom this, man. It doesn't make any sense. If you can work out what this fucking chart means, it was some scientific shit. I'll send
drop the link.
Yeah,
I'll get on it.
Well, if you search,
I've done 1 year of A-level physics, but it's never come in handy.
I don't even know how if you get up, the Moscow Signal epidemiological study 40 years on by Jose A. Martinez.
Auto filled. Cool.
But yeah, but basically the point is that they were putting out this thing which supposedly was in this range, and there is debate as to whether or not this could have caused harm. Right? I think it's still inconclusive, as we'll probably talk about with the Havana Syndrome. It is, which was a similar thing, which we go on to, but still, we're not really sure different levels of radiation what it can and can't do. It's a bit like no one's really sure yet. But they did various sort of tests. For to start with, the Americans thought it might the Russians were doing it, or the Soviets were doing it as part of like a mind control attempts, and they were also doing like because they were doing mind control experiments as part of the MK Ultra program. Oh, man said MK Ultra, yeah. Yeah.
I think it's episode 9.
Conspiracies.
Yeah, well, it's one of those great ones, isn't it? That just turned out to be was actually a thing. So as part of like one of these MK Ultra experiments that they were doing,
episode 11.
Well done. They were like testing microwaves on monkeys and shit, and observing the effects. I've got a little quote from the article here.
You got a quote from a monkey.
You got a quote from one of the monkeys. It was like, fuck me. Effects of radio frequency energy on primate cerebral activity. In one of these experiments, monkeys were exposed to high-powered 100-volt frequencies of 388 megahertz, resulting in several changes in the electroencephalogram. See, there's that. as well as arousal and drowsiness. See, I
Ooh.
quoted that because it said arousal in it, and I thought. In addition, he observed lethal effects after just a few minutes of exposure.
Okay.
Oh, wait, that's like an addition. In addition, some of them died, but that's not the main point. The arousal and drowsiness was the main point. So yeah, but then they went on to experiment with doing it on humans. So our friends DARPA as well. I think we spoke about DARPA before, haven't we? If not, then we maybe should have. Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. So DARPA are basically, I'm pretty sure they still exist today. I don't know whether they're on the borderlines of conspiracy again, but they definitely did exist. And I think they're pretty sure they still do. They're the ones that are researching just mad advanced war things. So but do end up.
Is that on their
that's on their bio on their
business
website.
pitch?
Yeah. Well, they do like. It's stuff like I think now people talk about they'll be experimenting with like exoskeletons for arm and like like fucking RoboCops, like the drones that march in and like, are you evil? Yes, USA says you are. Like
let us do mad shit for you.
Yeah. But they were at this time they then commissioned a study into the effects of microwaves on humans. And that was all part of MK Ultra stuff.
Surely all you've got to do is think about what would happen if you put a human in a microwave. I mean, it's not going to be good, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think obviously that's different. That's not, what they wanted to find out was like, can you kind of beam it at someone unbeknownst?
Like an energy beam.
Yeah, or like, you can't put someone in a microwave without knowing about it. I mean, unless it was a whole building that was a big microwave, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and just so I tried to look at like the numbers and some graphs and stuff, and basically they were firing microwaves at the building, but it was at a much lower, like power than a microwave actually is. So, I guess a microwave's quite intense, like Is
in a microwave oven?
Like a microwave oven.
Using the term microwave. Yeah.
Because obviously you've on the I say obviously because on the electromagnetic spectrum you've got varying waves from radio waves to microwaves and then like visible light and gamma rays and stuff. And as you go further up, the more dangerous it gets. And microwaves are obviously pretty dangerous, but at a certain frequency. And they were shooting
What's number one then?
What, the most dangerous?
Yeah.
So gamma rays, I think, are the most dangerous, but they just pass straight through your body. Like, they don't affect you at all. But if somehow you did focus a gamma ray on a cell, it would just instantly mutate that cell and cause it like to turn into cancer and shit. So it's basically, like microwaves are probably the most dangerous because they're in the middle, where they do like hit the cells in your body and can mutate you as well. But they were shooting at this building at such a low frequency, I guess, or such a lower power than a microwave oven that it's questionable as to whether it was dangerous to people or not, and that's what the experiments were all about. And now I've just trying to figure out if it was dangerous or not.
And now I've just understood the chart now as well from you saying that, which just clicked in my head again. The chart, right, has got three people's like understandings of what they understood the frequencies coming from the Soviets to be. So there's Linfield et al., which is like a study from this one guy, and then there's Krishnan, which is a study from another guy, and then there's a WikiLeaks article, which is what they said it was. So they kind of say it was like 0.005 megawatts per centimeter squared for 9 hours a day. They all kind of agree about that. Krishnan says never above 4 megawatts, so he goes a little higher, but never above. The limit in the in the Soviet Union was 0.010. The limit in the US was 10 megawatts. So they had a much higher limit, but it was still not near either of them as a limit of like safety of what you could kind of work with in like a 24-hour period is what those safety limits were put for like workers in factories and stuff like that. But still, perhaps it could do some other shit.
It seems kind of malicious, no matter how dangerous the wave is, just to shoot it at an embassy, right? Like, for no particular reason.
there's something going on. So at first, Russia said it was. I say Russia, it's the Soviets. It's not just Russia, is it? It's the whole Soviet Union. They said it was like radiation from like the city nearby or something weird. They were saying like the general waves of like the hubbub from the city was what you was detecting.
Right.
That was in the official response, hubbub.
The hubbub.
All the riffraff from the city.
What's the word I'm looking for? Why can't I say that?
Hullabaloo.
Hullabaloo, yeah. But yeah, so they basically, the Americans sort of, I actually wrote this in my notes, many people concluded it would fuck with you in some way. They were like, from this experiment for the MK Ultra that they did, this project that DARPA then rolled out, it's called the Pandora Project. They sort of realised that, it could mess with your nervous system, but again, it was, not completely conclusive, but they were like pretty sure from their stuff that it would, it could at least kind of raise like stress levels, and they reckon it could have caused like chronic stress in people working at the embassy, which would be an advantage to the Soviets. I mean, it made me think like even just letting people know, but then that didn't really happen. But like, I wonder if that I sort of theorised that maybe even I think people do speak about this with the Havana Syndrome, and you talk about it a bit later, but that like maybe just the idea of saying you're doing it is fucking with people in itself, which is causing stress and stuff. And and different now with the Havana one, because people would be aware, if not instantly, they could Google and read about this one, the Moscow signal, and be like, well, maybe it caused cancer, because there were lots of people who then basically, the idea of this paper is looking at it 40 years on, and revisiting, did people end up with cancer? And again, it's kind of inconclusive. So there's quite a few studies looked into it, and they've done like because this is the whole point of it is an epidemiological study done by studies of a couple of people, but they were like looking at all the groups of people that worked in the embassy, and then seeing were their mortality rates lower, did they get more cancers, and then they used that compared to just other people that just generally worked in other embassies that weren't in Moscow around the same sort of time, just like a control group. It was like you had a similar job, and it's sort of like I read one bit about like a survival bias, where it's like, well, they're all pretty fucking strong, healthy people, so you need to then compare that to like, the people that would get these jobs in the first place, they're like high flyers, so you need to sort of compare these to other people to get a more fair understanding, of like, because basically the results of some of the studies were like kind of inconclusive. It was like, some people got cancer, but also so did some people in the control group. There was not necessarily a higher rate of cancer compared to the other groups. But then other people were saying, well, but compared to like the normal population, of which these people kind of aren't, then it was a higher rate of cancer.
Okay.
Because
very inconclusive then.
Very inconclusive, really. Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, there were a few guys that got cancer, but then, like, Well,
it says here that Ambassador Walter Stroessel fell ill in 1975 with symptoms including bleeding from the eyes. He later died of leukemia.
Yeah, I read about Stroessel as dying from leukemia. I didn't read about the bleeding from the eyes bit. Yeah,
bleeding from the eyes.
Yeah,
ruined the weekend.
No, it's not good.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor by trade, but I don't think bleeding from the eyes is that great for you.
Probably. But like, so the mad thing is the Soviets did eventually admit it. So, eventually the Americans admitted that they were, that they were aware of it. So in like 1972, they came out and said, we're aware of this shit happening, but it still kept going on for a bit. But they kind of lied to the embassy workers for a while when they were doing these part of this like Pandora experiments. They wanted to get like blood samples from the people that worked there to kind of analyze them and compare them, and they like said some shit that made up some bullshit reason as to why they were doing it. So even they were like, obviously we all know the American government lie. Again, there's sort of like evidence of that But then, the Soviets eventually came out and admitted that they were doing this. What's the word? Irradiation. They were irradiating the embassy. But they said they'd been doing it not to damage the health of the American personnel, but to interfere in the communications of the embassy.
Yeah, so that was one of the when you initially said that they were shooting waves at the embassy. I was thinking maybe it is just to try and either like intercept some kind of like communications or
well, that's one of the big theories.
Things make their technology not work not as well as it should.
Yeah, well, they've sort of said that, but a lot of people have theorised that it's like, and a lot of people talk about this to do with the Havana Syndrome as well. So the Havana Syndrome, and both of these, they reckon that it's they could be shooting these microwaves because there's some sort of like super intelligent like spy shit that like it pings an exact message back, like stuff like that. But it's the sort of things that like you can't even find out as a journalist, like even now, and especially not then. Like it was super top secret then, the stuff that was maybe going on. And maybe the Americans do really know what happened and exactly what's going on, but you can't even find it in a study, even now, even in declassified stuff. There's still shit that never gets declassified, is there?
Oh, yeah, and there's stuff that it will just get, the papers won't exist for it anymore. They'll just burn the papers. Like if it's that top secret, that all that declassified documents, they have the power just to get rid of those.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they must do. Yeah.
And it's smart that if the Americans know exactly what they're using it for, it's smart for them to not give up that they know, right? Just pretend that, like, if they was aware of it, it went on for quite a while. You said it went on for like at least 10 years or so it was going on for?
1953 to 1979, so 20 odd years.
Yeah. So if they knew about it, then they could have just, you would have just lined the walls with some lead or something and just blocked it, or just somehow used the waves against them, or just, if you knew what they were doing it for, you wouldn't come out and be like, we know what these Soviets are up to. You would just keep it quiet, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Or you think why you think they'd keep it quiet to be like, let's see what we can do back to them, or is it like
it's like in films, like where someone might be like spying on someone, and the person who's being spied on knows they're being spied on, so they might act differently to throw someone off the scent. And then, if you know what they're doing, then do they know that you know what they're doing? And then do you know that they know? And then you're outplaying each other.
So then you're in the embassy going like, oh, let's just like never do anything to Russia anymore. We've decided that we're just going to lay off. Like, oh, okay. Every day they walk around saying that, and then in the lead-lined room, they're like,
let's fuck him up.
Yeah.
Be pretty stressful being an American diplomat in the Moscow embassy at the height of the Cold War, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it must have been. And that's why,
pretty intense.
Again, people talk about this with you might even mention it, George, with the Havana one, that like, it's, so basically, we've mentioned Havana enough times. Yeah, there's a similar thing going on in 2016, I think it started, didn't it?
Yep, still recent.
Still going on.
Breaking
it's even more
news.
recent than that, my friend. It's breaking. There was very recently there was a news story about it. I think at the start of the month, October.
Yeah,
fill me in.
Give us the top lines, George, and then I'll bring it back to this a little. They sort of do intertwine quite a lot.
Yeah, so Havana Syndrome is basically began at the American Embassy in Havana in Cuba in 2016. So it relates to a few different symptoms that include ringing of the ears, fatigue, and dizziness. And it was first reported by United States and Canadian embassy staff in 2016. However, it's since been reported in many other countries, including China and across Europe, mostly by American or Canadian diplomats. And they're currently the United States Department of State has referred to the offence as an unexplained health incident. So there's still no.
They still don't know what it is.
Still don't know what it is. So
or do they?
Well,
that's the thing. Yeah. Similar to the Moscow signal, I guess. There's lots of theories. One of them is microwaves.
They're all quite. But in this one, people say that they've people report to have actually heard it, don't they? In these with the Havana Syndrome, people say they've heard a sound,
so there's
they remember hearing a sound, but like that they think's fucked with them.
Yeah, so I don't think I've got it here.
Maybe it's that 52 hertz whale that's just sort of knocking about just off the coast of Havana. I assume Havana's near the water, but it's but no one can actually hear it. It's like, but it's going in their ears.
You can feel it, yeah.
I mean, it sounds shit because there was one. I don't think I've got it here, but so basically, the original event was like a grating noise which they couldn't really place. So the story that I read originally was a diplomat woke up in the middle of the night with like a splitting headache and this grating noise that he couldn't locate, and like a pressure in his head, vibrations, and a sensation comparable to driving a car with the windows partly rolled down. You get
I hate that.
weird,
Yeah,
I hate that.
Yeah, it's like pressure.
Helicopter
it's like
noise.
You can feel the pressure pulsating in your ears.
That's what it was. There was a video on YouTube of I don't think he was a diplomat. It was like a security service man, like a guard or a CIA agent, and he was being interviewed by, I think, like an Australian news channel or something, and he was reporting his experience, which was basically this: woke up in the night with this like intense pressure in his head.
I saw this.
Gave him a really, really big headache. And the noise originally lasted between 20 seconds to 30 minutes and happened whilst the diplomats were at home or in their hotel rooms. But other people nearby, including family members and guests in neighbouring rooms, did not report hearing anything.
So is it happening in different locations then? Like different people went home and had the same experience?
Yep. So obviously it originally happened in Cuba, in Havana, but it's since happened in Moscow, Poland, Tbilisi, which is in Georgia, Taiwan, Australia, Colombia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Austria, and most recently...
all over the gaff, isn't it?
Yeah, most recently in Serbia, in 2021, the CIA evacuated an intelligence officer suspected of being a victim of the neurological attack. In August 2021, Berlin, the US Embassy in Berlin, so
it's always happening to US...
Which is part of the intrigue, right? Where people are like, is this a mass hysteria? Like we spoke about before with like the dancing plague from...
No, don't mention it.
Don't mention it. We'll start dancing. Oh, that was from that. Yeah, that's like the only interesting... It's funny I'll bring up a thing from that episode. But that was an interesting bit. I think about that every now and then. So, like, for people that probably haven't listened to the episode, Yeah,
episode 15, Weird History. Don't you dare go listen to it.
No, just don't. Don't bother. But this is the only bit you need to know.
Certain warmth to the episode.
Has it got like a cult following that episode? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, I think so. It's got like a certain mystique.
But you spoke about the dancing plague, which was like a mass hysteria that caught on in what sort of time period are we talking, George?
Like 1630 or something.
Yeah,
15, 16.
Yeah, where like it just caused people to all dance inexplicably, and it spread throughout towns for like years and years. But there's people saying that potentially this is all just this prick. That there's that it's just all just in their heads. Basically, is what some people are saying, and because some put them, but like not in their heads as in they're making it up, but as in like so. What's the word? Like,
well, I guess they are making it up, but subconsciously, like not intentionally.
But subconsciously, not intentionally, like proper placebo. The opposite, the bad placebo.
Nocebo.
Well, it seems to be.
What'd you say?
It seems to be increasing. Though that's the only thing, because in 2021, so this year, it's happened in Vienna. Dozens of US personnel, including their families, so including children.
Vienna.
I didn't know what was happening then. I thought I was having some sort of weird syndrome. So including their kids, several diplomats in Vienna have had it. In Berlin, like I said, Serbia, in London as well, in October this year, so very, very recently. US embassy personnel and their families in Bogota, Colombia, came down with symptoms linked to the syndrome.
You're just naming places now.
Well, in Hanoi, Vietnam, it's also happened, incidents of the Havana Syndrome.
Yeah.
Which also delayed Vice President Kamala Harris's visit to Vietnam.
Yeah, that's the one I read about.
Yeah, and in India as well. So it's happening all over the world. Sometimes affecting the families, like the kids, wives, husbands of the diplomats. But
which is
most of the
interesting,
time-
isn't it? It's like because there was never any mention of that in the Moscow one. And there's no mention of them hearing anything, so it's sort of similar but different. You know, I guess the similarities end where they say it's like microwaves, and then other people think it. But then, like, the reasons as to why a lot of people say are the same. You know, like all the theories. You know, like everything it's listening devices maybe they're trying to do, but then it's got to be. But then maybe you could argue that the frequencies of which they're using now are completely different. They're experimenting with because they realised that didn't work all 8 years ago. That was ancient technology. Think how much technology's moved on. So whatever it is ancient in terms of technology, isn't it?
But you would think that we would have the technology to basically detect any kind of signal frequency interference.
Yeah, but like you say,
whether
maybe
it's audio or some kind of electromagnetic spectrum. Like we can detect everything now, surely.
But maybe we do. But we ain't admitting it because we didn't admit it then.
Well, the
government really do know what's going on, but they can't do shit about it. So they can't come out to all the embassy workers and be like, lads.
Yeah. Because then they'd lose face against Russia or China, whoever it is. China. It's a good point.
But you can do shit with sound things, isn't there? Like there are like now like
brown
sound.
note. What's the brown note?
Well, it's a room. It's not real.
That's not an actual thing.
The brown note.
The American military did experiment with that.
It's the reason why it's bollocks. I'll tell you why. The theory of the brown note is that everything vibrates at a frequency. Okay, so like your bowels vibrate at a frequency. You could technically detect, like you said, you can detect the frequency of anything. You can detect the frequency that your bowels are vibrating. You can detect the frequency that your heart is vibrating, right? So in theory, if you get a device which could play back that exact frequency, and you'd have to kind of hold it right at like your bowels, you could do it so that it perfectly kind of phases out with your bowels and stops them, which would make you shit yourself. Same as you could in theory stop someone's heart. You could stop your heart moving by playing back the exact frequency that your heart vibrates at right next to it or something.
I want one that stops you coming.
But then, like, so that's the theory of the brown note. That like you could play this exact note that vibrates your bowels in a certain way. But like you could maybe at like such an amplitude, if you could work out what frequency one person's bowels are and work out how to play it through speakers at a high enough amplitude to cause it to happen, you could maybe make one person shit themselves. But to make a whole room of people shit themselves, probably not happening because everyone's bowels are ever so slightly different frequencies.
On looking up the brown note, sorry to interrupt, I just found there's a link on the page to a plane called the Republic XF-84H, which was an experimental aircraft that produced enough noise to cause headaches, nausea and seizures amongst its ground crew.
Yeah.
I guess that's all linked to frequencies. And that sort of
what I was
going to
say about the things, it's the same theory as to why you can break a glass by singing at the frequency that it rings at. So you have to ting it as well. So you have to, you know, and you can, people do it, don't know, on YouTube.
Yeah, I've seen people actually
opera
do
singers.
that, yeah.
You can actually do this because you sing at the same frequency it's vibrating at, which basically causes it to stop in a way and shatters it. Or the opposite, vibrate so much, so quickly that it shatters. Maybe it's that way around. But yeah. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so carry on.
We were saying, I was just saying that we should be able to detect any kind of frequency, really.
Yeah, which you
but
think
then
they
you
would
said, it's a good point that they probably wouldn't let on that they could detect it because then they would maybe change their methods or whatever. Yeah, or like you said, it could just be the nocebo effect, which is actually a word, and it's just the opposite of placebo effect. Just a placebo effect that has negative effects is, you know, if you believe something negative is happening to you, it's probably same kind of thing that people that believe they're haunted, or you know, last week in the Halloween episode where we spoke about the woman who had wished all her life why ghosts didn't come for her, and then spoke aloud when watching TV. Man, I wouldn't mind if a ghost came and shagged me. And then, lo and behold, that night, you know, one shows up. That's I mean, that's a placebo effect, actually, because she wanted it to happen. But, people who believe... It's the same thing as...
Ghosts are real, though.
It's the same thing as people who believe they're unlucky, right? There's that whole Darren Brown thing where he talks about...
Yeah, we spoke about that briefly.
Making your own luck. And people who believe they're unlucky are unlucky. So, I guess these... you get a job at the US Embassy and you think, man, so many people have had bleeding ears or whatever.
Yeah, but then what about the first guy that got it?
It's just like food poisoning or something.
yeah, maybe. And he heard about the Moscow thing because I think
just it could be something that is because it's all US embassies, right? Mostly. So what if it's just something that they use in every single US embassy that is unbeknownst to them,
Americans
causing, maybe Americans. But like for instance, my my ring light for the for this lovely podcast,
That's
realised
quite a good theory. Yeah,
go on YouTube and check out George's half decent lighting now. It's better than his awful lighting he had before.
But up until this episode, I've been plugging it into a little external drive, and it was causing like this weird little frequency that Rob kept hearing during the edit, which wasn't really causing any problems, but there was like this weird little thing going on in the background. What if they've got like a template for all embassies around the world, some sort of like software or whatever that they use, that
which is quite
unbeknownst to them is causing the problem.
Yeah,
quite possible. There'll be a certain something that probably gets put in all the embassies. Like whether that's like you say, like the tech that they use or the building materials that all get used, although they probably use local building materials. Maybe like the tech that all goes in there. Or
it could be.
It's got to be something like that, surely.
They obviously got to have like crazy security, so maybe they've all got some kind of something in their computer that's causing some weird frequency.
Maybe but we're also seeing the fears of
you've cracked it.
People from sort of 15 years ago, mobile phones giving people cancer. Well, that's are we now reaching the point where all these frequencies in the air, or whatever, are now actually affecting people?
Are fucking you up? Yeah. Well, you can because that's what I was going to say. It's about like they do like there are like sonic weapons.
Yeah.
That like non-lethal weapons that people experiment with, isn't it? And I think they do use them in like some American places where like you can stop a riot with like this mad. Like thing where it just looks like a freak and you just can't go past it. Like, imagine it. Yeah. So that sort of stuff does exist. So maybe there are some sort of frequencies that they could just be fucking. But then I don't think there's many theories as to who's doing it, is there, George? Because it's like
not really, no.
Because it's so all over. I guess first, I guess the initial theory would have been the Cubans.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is obviously the Russians. American Russia.
Yeah.
So it's always...
I was saying, because they're not really that at war with the Cubans, are they? But like...
No, I mean, there was
that whole embargo thing, which...
Yeah, Cuba is... they're not like a big boy threat, but I think Cuba were always like friendly with the Russians and the Soviets during the Cold War. So
is that the theory? Still. Right, yeah.
But so obviously Cuba being so close to the US was always used as a listening post for the Soviets.
Right.
And the whole Cuban Missile Crisis was because the Soviet Union put missiles in Cuba that were capable of obviously bombing the US. Bullshit. But anyway, right.
So that's why this is where the hysteria could could start from of the paranoia of that. But then like the people that say that they've had this Havana Syndrome are obviously very much like, this is some fucking real shit. Like, it ain't in my head. But then that is what someone would say that believed it to be true, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
because it is real to you. It is real. It's the same. It's indistinguishable, really.
Yeah, it's like schizophrenia or whatever. Where
if you're having the effects.
So apparently,
you're having the effects.
Just read here that the most compelling evidence of Russian involvement has been found using mobile phone tracking. CIA investigators were able to deduce the whereabouts of several Russian agents and place them in close proximity to CIA officers at the time that they had been attacked or started experiencing symptoms whilst they were in Poland, Georgia, Australia and Taiwan. In each case, FSB agents, which is the Russian Secret Service, were within range of the CIA officers who'd been hit. And this was in 2009. Location data showed FSB agents in the same hotel.
Bastards.
And then in 2021, Mark Vandroff, who was a senior director for defense.
Luther's brother.
He was in a country with a large Russian military and undercover presence. As the officer pulled his car onto a busy intersection, he suddenly felt as though his head were going to explode. His 2-year-old son in a car seat in the back began screaming. As the officer sped off of the intersection, the pressure in his head ceased and his son went quiet. A similar incident was reported by a separate CIA officer stationed in the same city and had no connection to the military officer who reported it. So the big theory is the Russians. Those damn Russians.
Well, one thing I read as well about it was just like one guy's theory was like, well, if it was, like why isn't it kind of happening to British people and stuff? It's like, the Russians have no fear of doing stuff on UK soil, as seen with like the poisoning of the guy.
Yeah.
So it's like why would they be? And that's fact that they ain't worried about doing that when they have to. So
and that mad one, Salisbury from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that was far out, wasn't it?
Park bench,
so far out.
There's a good I think it's BBC thing about that. I can't remember what it's called, but it's really good.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, going back to the Moscow signal, like the Cold War and like the 60s through to the 80s, it must have just been a mental time to be in the Secret Service. Like all these weird covert operations going on, and it's just mental. When you actually read about the Cold War, there's some crazy stuff that happened that you just don't know about. No one knows about.
Do you know about it?
But too much to go into now. It's like a whole different topic.
So people do know about it?
Yeah, some people, obviously there's operations, there's CIA operations that are, again, coming out, they're being declassified.
All right, then, okay, all right. Didn't know about it at the time. Right, I thought you were like, just saying there's shit and no one knows. Okay.
No one knows about it.
Well, then we still
promise they're true.
Yeah.
Breaking on the Curios Cast.
Just like a crazy time to be in the CIA, I reckon.
Yeah, I bet.
But fucking so stressful. Like checking your room for bugs. The whole thing about bugging rooms and trying to come up with the most like obscure ways to bug cars and all that sort of stuff is pretty interesting as well if you look into that. It's crazy. But no one knows. No one knows what the Havana Syndrome is.
No, it's still unknown. It's still unknown. Still inconclusive as to what the Moscow signal.
It's also happened in the US as well. So hasn't that just happened around the world? It's also happened in Washington. Maybe it's aliens. Maybe this is like the first thing.
Hopefully.
Yeah. One weird theory is that it's crickets.
Yeah, I read that one. Yeah, it's the sound. It's because there are recordings of it, aren't there? I think of this particular. There are some recordings that like on file of these of some of these sounds, and there's this one like university have come out and said we've like matched the frequency, like the spectrograph of the frequency to that of a recording of crickets slowed down or something. So,
slow.
Have you ever heard that thing of the cricket? It's this thing that goes around that people say, it's like a video and it's like this. It's called like the crickets chorus, and they say this is the sound of crickets slowed right down, and to it sounds like a choir singing like. Oh.
That can't be true.
It's not true. Yeah, it's just not true at all. And people like every now and then it gets shared around YouTube. It's like amazing cricket chorus.
The things that people will believe, like you could just put anything. Like you could just put you could be like, listen, what happened when I slowed down my cat, and it'd be like, hey up, mate, I'm your cat, and then people will be like, whoa, that's what happens when you slow down a meow. Like someone will believe it. Fucking idiots.
Well, and then like the combat of that is loads of people just like, this is the sound of slowed down crickets, and it's just obviously not that.
But people won't see the rebuttal. People will. Someone will post that on Facebook. Someone will
still share it now.
You can search it. And it's done.
Yeah, search it right now, and there'll be a YouTube video of the sound of these crickets chorus, and people will like loving it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, next week's episode is all about people believing stupid things on the internet.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, there you go. Perfect.
It's a good segue.
Yeah.
So
if you try and slander Bigfoot or ghosts, then I'm quitting.
No, I don't think there's any Bigfoot involved. No.
Good. What about ghosts?
No, I don't think so.
Speaking
of like,
what'd you say?
The sound waves. when I was about 10, one of these, it was like a birthday or Christmas, someone got me one of those like spy kits that you get kids that have like, you know, they've got the sunglasses with like the mirrors on the inside so you can see behind you, and they've got like there was like this, basically it was like a list, you could listen to people in the next room or whatever, and it's this like little radar gun, and you basically it just had like a microphone on it basically, and you plug it in and put your earphones in and you can listen to people in the next room by like sticking it under a door or something. And it had this gun that's meant to be like a speech jammer. So, you know, it's really hard to talk if you hear your own voice back in like a slight delay. And there's apps and websites you can use to test it where you talk into your phone or whatever, have your earphones in, and it plays your voice back to you. I don't know what the difference would be, but like, you know, half a second delayed.
It's like out of phase, like
and it is hard to talk. Like you're hearing your own voice come back at you just a split second later, and it is really hard to keep your speech flowing. But this toy gun was meant to be that you point it at someone, pull the trigger, and it plays their own voice back to them, and they can't talk. So the idea, like, I think the advert for it is like a kid sitting there, and his little brother's like annoying him, and he points the gun at him, and the kid's like can't talk anymore. And I had this gun. It was so shit though. It didn't work. It was a gun that had a microphone on the end, and then a speaker just built into it. And you point it, and all it does is it picks up so much ambient noise. It's like, and then you can hear the voice, but it doesn't work as a speech jammer.
Maybe that's what they're using in Havana.
Yeah, maybe
they're trying that. Yeah,
that's US Embassy like top. That's the CIA's top equipment.
Top brass.
Yeah,
brilliant. I love that phrase, top brass.
Let's
got the old top brass involved in this.
On that, I think we'll wrap it up there.
Cool. Yeah, tune in next week for silly internet.
Tune in on the many frequencies and hertz, waves, gamma shit on any podcast platform.
Love it. Well done, George.
X-rays, gamma rays.
0.5. Cheers.
Bye.
That's Curios Cast episode 54.